Good morning and welcome to the Government of Dominica's daily press briefing post-Hurricane Maria. We are all aware that it is now 1 month and 21 days since Hurricane Maria struck this beautiful island of ours. We want to welcome the various radio stations that are joining us at this point, and also those joining us by social media. With me, my name is Cecil Shillingford. I am a disaster risk management specialist consultant with the Government of Dominica. And with me is Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Karen Prevost, who is also very much involved in the relief efforts following Hurricane Maria. And today, we will be talking about transitioning from response to recovery. And actually, the transition has already begun, and we are pretty much running a parallel system of response and recovery. But a time will come when we'll totally move away from response and dealing with the recovery aspect. P.S. Prevost will talk about the relief aspect of response. I'll point to a number of elements in both response and recovery, and speak more to the early recovery aspect. The elements of response would be search and rescue, healthcare, and that is search and rescue, of course, if people are trapped in a certain area, and this happens immediately after the event. So your emergency services go out if people are caught in an area, if people need help to move from one point to another. And the fire service and the police service, they do that very well. You have the healthcare where people may be injured and they need immediate health care. They need immediate attention, and that is done in the early stages of the response. Also, emergency shelters. Emergency shelter, that aspect is done even before the event sometimes. And in the case of the weather-related events, people go to shelters because they are not certain about, or they are not comfortable with the area where they are living, either the location or the structure, and they move to shelters before the fact. And also, they remain in shelters after the fact, some very short-term, some more medium term, and some very long term. We always prefer the very short term, but in the case of these devastating hurricanes, categories 4, 5, we always have some long term sheltering. There's a relief aspect where immediate relief has to be brought to the people because many of them would have lost everything, and the functions of the country, things like the banking sector, the business communities, etc., that is not functional, so the state has a responsibility to provide relief. Very often you have short-term relief, you go into medium-term relief. We are always hoping that relief will not extend beyond a particular time frame. However, very often you still, even if you cut down on the relief to the general public, all and sundry, so to speak, they are the vulnerable groups that you still have to take care of, and Ms. Prevost will talk about that shortly. And the final aspect of response is the identification, notification to relatives and friends, and the disposal of the dead. So if people have died as a result of the event, that also has to be dealt with speedily. And then you have the other side of the coin, which is the recovery. And of course, when we talk about recovery, we're talking about rehabilitation, we're talking about reconstruction, and we're talking about development. And as I indicated earlier, in the early days, you're pretty much only doing response. And then as you move along, you start doing your transitioning, where you could be running a parallel system where you're doing response with some recovery, and then you move away totally from your response into full-scale recovery. So just some pointers. I will at this point call on Ms. Prevost, PS Prevost, to talk to us about the relief aspect of our Hurricane Maria response, and then I will go into the recovery stuff.